Welcome to this episode of the Leading Well podcast, hosted by Zach and Bowden. This podcast is an ongoing conversation to provide you with the practical tools, inspiring stories, to awaken the passions God has placed in you, to help you lead well, both in the church and in the community.
Hey, welcome to our Leading Well podcast. Here we are. I'm in the car with Tex, our student ministry director, Kim Parrish, our children's ministry director, and Maria Brown, our children's ministry associate. And we are in Atlanta. We just spent the last three days here in Atlanta at an Orange conference. Why don't you guys say hello?
Howdy.
Hello. Hello.
And what I love for us to do, we're kind of just recording this literally on the car ride home to the airport to fly back to Tucson. What I'd love for you guys to do is just share a little bit about what is Orange and why do we use Orange, and then we'll come back and talk about what we learned. But somebody want to start and share what is Orange?
Definitely. For us, Orange is essentially this overall strategy that encompasses literally children and students all the way from birth till their graduation, and it's this strategy and this organization that started through North Point. And so they put on a conference every year for children and student ministries to come together. And it's essentially based around this idea of leading small and partnering with families and what that looks like. And small groups are a huge part of that. And so for us, we've adopted that philosophy with our children and students, kind of this huge overarching thing, which is awesome because it just allows us to be streamlined. It allows us to be able to have the same kind of language and the same kind of strategy across the board for what we do. So it was super exciting to be able to come out to this conference, kind of just hear from those minds and those thoughts that are in that strategy and that way of thinking, and for us to challenge ourselves and how do we get better at what we do.
What do you want to add to that, Kim?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I just love the mindset. It's our curriculum, but it's more than a curriculum. It's a mindset. It's how you approach ministry. So it's a curriculum that's designed for that mindset of small group, being intentional, building relationships between a leader and a parent, but then also partnering with parents. So between the leader and the child. And I just love their philosophy of that. The way to influence a child is to have more than one person influencing that child for the Lord. So the fact that we get to partner with a parent to do that and join hands together. So everything they do is designed that way. And it's just a wonderful curriculum that is also a philosophy of ministry.
Yeah, I think it comes, and I appreciate how you guys say that. It's a strategy. It's kind of the mindset. I think for us, it probably goes back in a little deeper than that. It's that conviction that we believe that life transformation happens best in relationships or through relationships.
Yes.
And where that's in our for our adults, if that's for parents, if that's for students, or if that's for kids, or even kindergartners and preschoolers. And teaching is really important. We all need teaching in our lives, but how we're going to apply God's word and how we're actually going to grow spiritually is through a relationship with somebody else. And we think here, we spent time together as in Orange, and as time with you guys in children and student ministry, that happens through a relationship with another adult and a relationship with other kids.
Right.
And so what does that look like for us as a church? It's not just a children and student ministry thing. Our heart is that everyone at New Life who calls New Life home in some capacity would be in community with one another. And so I really appreciate the shared heart that the three of us have, especially, and then your team, with Maria and other people as well. And so maybe we at Orange Conference, and you come, you have big speakers and breakouts, and you kind of walk through a few things. I'd love to hear from each of you something that you learned that was just significant for you, or sometime in the last three days.
So I would say for me, the theme this year was just to make it personal. And I loved their strategy for what it means to make it personal. And I think they gave us some great, the 5 things on what it means to make it personal for a child. And when you look at a child, a preschooler, an elementary student, or a student in students ministry, to know that they have a leader that knows their name, just that first step is huge. Then the second one was having the leader know the context and where they come from. What is their home like? What is their culture like? To feel known. For the leader to know what they care about, and for the leader to know, what I did, maybe like what is my sin, what have I done wrong, that kind of thing. But then to know that in spite of all of that, or with all of that, they still love me. And so to have another powerful force in your child's life that is a leader in church, that is heading in the same direction as a parent, trying to leading them towards the gospel, I think that is so important. And I think those 5 questions that they gave us are something that we can apply anywhere, because you know how good it is when you even walk into a grocery store to have the clerk know your name, and so to be able to walk into the church and they know you and they've taken the time to get to know you, just what a difference that makes for a child, that someone knows them personally.
That's really good, Kim. I know for me, one of the kind of things, I love this theme, this idea of making it personal. Because the reality is when you put a name to the number, because I think it's one of those things that it can be really easy to look at a roster and miss out on the child's name, like you were saying, but when you add that and you see their stories and their history, it becomes such a big deal. And so one of the speakers, her name is Kristen Ivy, really kind of got into this idea of being shallow versus personal. And it's funny because she makes the argument that essentially we think of the opposite of shallow being deep, but the truth is often what we think is deep is actually really shallow. And so it's one of those things that she challenges kind of that thought based, because shallow can be fast, but personal takes time. And while shallow is familiar and comfortable, personal is unpredictable and messy. And while shallow can cost money, personal cost me. And so I just loved that, the idea of what does it mean to be personal with our children and our students, that we know their names and their stories and their culture, and their lives and where they're at, and that we're actually just working towards building those kind of relationships. But the hard part for us is it requires us being just as equal, open, and real with them. That we're not putting on the church facade of being, I got everything together. It's like that old thing I grew up hearing people say at church. It's like, how are you doing today? They're like, I'm blessed. And I'm like, your dog died. You're not sad about that? They're like, I mean, I am, but I'm still blessed. Let's be real. I'm just sad. I'm grieving. Whatever the case is. Maybe that's an extreme example, but I think it's one of those that if we can be real and honest with our kids, it's not about having right answers, but rather building that relationship. And relationships come through that kind of honest vulnerability with each other. It doesn't come through, walls and masks and facades. It really comes from that kind of honesty and earning that kind of trust with our students. It's something that happens hugely through that kind of relationship building.
So I came away, this is Maria, and I came away with super excited exactly what Kim and Tex have been talking about. And for us who attended the conference to just come back and say, we're going to do this, we just can't do it by ourselves. And so I'm super excited to invite others to join us on this journey and be a part of pouring into others' lives, whether it's children, students, or adults, that everybody at New Life has a role and a part in being part of the connection and the growth in God's kingdom. So super excited to just have people join us, because we just don't want to do this on our own. This is just too special and too important to do by ourselves.
That's good. Thanks for sharing, each of you. And I think for me, there was a phrase that I said a few times, and it said, "Seeing people see people," and I just I wrote that down, and that's kind of probably a quote that I'll walk away with from this conference, is because that sense of we all desire to be seen. We all desire, if I was to use your guys' words, to be welcome, known, and loved. That when you are fully seen, and when you allow people to see you, breaks. When you allow people to see you, and you experience that sense of being welcome, known, and loved, that enables you. You've experienced what that means, so it makes you able to go turn around and see other people. And for those of you who are not seen, or you don't feel like you have people who know you, it's hard for you to turn around and to show love and to welcome, know, and love people. And just that value of, for us, what does it look like for us as leaders, where the groups or the teams we're a part of, children, students, or adults, Man, just the value it is for us to see people and to notice people and to welcome and know and to love them. And so I really do appreciate that.
Man, that's really good, Zach. So let me ask you this question. Turn the table on you. What was the most convicting thing for you throughout this conference that you're going to go home with, that you're going to be able to apply to your team and your folks? What is the one thing you want to be able to share with them?
So I think, if I'll just hang out with the thought I'm at right there, that seeing people see people. It's easy in life just to get busy, just doing lots of stuff. And, man, we all have to-do lists that are way too long to get our day done. We could get done in one day, whether if that's in the church or in your jobs or in your families. But just to go home and work on, I can't see everybody. I know I can't see everyone. I could try. My heart is there to see everyone, but to go back and go, who are the few people in my life, or who are the few people that I need to invite into my life that I could really see, and to really invest some time, some energy, and invest into their lives and help them recognize that, hey, I see you, but more than that, God sees you. And so I think that's, for me, that those are things that God's been working on me and my own heart is. There's some people I need to invite into my life, or maybe the other way to say that, I need to invite myself into their lives so they can see that I see them, but more importantly, that God sees them.
That's good. I can say that makes me think of John Acuff during our thing. He shares this story about New York City, and if you fly over it, you can see Central Park, and really and truly in the midst of New York City, it kind of looks like wasted space. And when you think about the amount of buildings they could put in stores and the amount of just commerce that could go into the city. But New York City understands this weird thing that if you paved over Central Park, the city would fall apart. That it's important to have that kind of space that seems wasted because of what it does to the hearts of the people. And for us, he challenges us that for many of us, we're so busy, we've paved over the central parks in our lives that might seem like wasted space, but they're what give our hearts joy and build up like our teams and the things like you were just saying. Who are the few people that I need to be investing in? So often we get busy, we don't pave those things to build up the right thing that keep our cities going. So when you're saying that, man, I'm just like running with that. That's so good.
That's funny. I don't remember that story at all when he said that. So I must have been taking a nap during that story about New York City. So sorry about that, Tex. So Kim, you start off, and I think the three of you just kind of mentioned it a little bit, this theme of make it personal. And so I would love to hear what that means for you personally. Like, what does it mean for you to make it personal, not necessarily in what you do, but in who you are?
One of the Bible stories that they used to illustrate how Jesus taught us this was the story of Zacchaeus. And I love that. I think my whole life I've thought of the story of Zacchaeus is that Jesus was going to Zacchaeus' house to tell him what he had done wrong. And when we looked through this story through a different filter, what I learned and what I want to apply more to my life is that Jesus identified Zacchaeus in a way that showed dignity and honor and value. And I just want more of that in my life. I don't want to feel like I need to be the one to be there to tell people what they're doing wrong, but to get to know them and to learn their story and to add value to them and worth to them. But then another speaker made the comment that he was using the illustration of where the men had taken their friend through the roof, and that what we learn is that when we bring people closer to Jesus, Jesus changes things. But I'm not going to be able to bring people closer to Jesus until I take the time to personally get to know them. So just in ministry, when we get so busy with programs and events and things that are going on, like those things are all fine and good, but you could call that my hustle. But they made the comment that if the hustle is so busy that you don't have time for people, then you're not doing ministry anymore. And so I just walked away from here this weekend just being convicted about, in my own life as an individual, not as being a children's ministry director, but where am I finding time for people to be personal and invest in their lives and to bring them closer to Jesus? But then also, how does that change my ministry? How do I equip my small group leaders to be pursuing children, to know them personally, and to then through that relationship bring them closer to Jesus? So I'm just, I love, he said that Zacchaeus had lost his sense of identity, but that Jesus had called him by name. And Zacchaeus had lost his sense of belonging, but Jesus went to his house and made friends and was a part of the family there. And that Zacchaeus had lost his sense of purpose, but Jesus had pointed out to him why this mattered. And so I want our kids to have that. I want our kids, through a personal relationship with their leader, but most importantly, through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, to have their identity, to know that they belong somewhere and that they have a purpose. They were created for a calling. And I think all of that happens through the small step of making things personal.
Man, that's so good, Kim. And it's funny because, like, as I look at the idea of making it personal, like, I think it stems out of that whole thought of how important relationships are. And it's funny because as we look at even at the story that they shared about, like, Jesus and Zacchaeus, one of the things that I find interesting as they shared, like, Jesus is on his way to the cross at this point. You know, they shared he's on his way to Jerusalem. Like, he's on his way to why he's here, the cross, the redemption of the world. And yet he takes time out of his way for the most important thing ever, to have this, in a way, an interruption. He calls out Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus doesn't call to Jesus. He just climbs the tree, but yet Jesus calls him by name and says, I'm coming to your house. What most of us would see as an interruption, Jesus sees very much as an important appointment. That he wants to pour into this person. He wants to have this real relationship with Zacchaeus. And even when he's there, like you were saying, when he's at the home, it wasn't to correct him. And in fact, it's after the dinner, it's after they've spent all this time together, that Zacchaeus then says, you know what? I'm going to give everything back. It's not that Jesus, like, he changed his life around and Jesus went to his house. It's that Jesus went to him in his home as the guy that everybody hated and spent time with. And just how much of making it personal depends upon that kind of seeking relationships. And I think in ministry, it's so much as systems and strategies, but ultimately relationship is what builds the more important thing, which is culture. And culture, as we were talking about today, the John Maxwell quote that, culture eats strategy for breakfast every single day, and that's built through relationships. And so for us, as we go home and working on our team and just saying, how do we build better relationships? How do we build more honest relationships? And just how do we work on building trust with our students and with our small group leaders and everyone that's part of our teams, that those things are so valuable and important that we're not just, we're not like, I think youth group, it's one of those things people think we're just there to have fun and hang out with kids. And while yes, it's true, but we have a real huge purpose behind those relationships and seeing them coming to know Jesus through that change in relationship.
So one of the things that really struck me, and I'm excited to just be empowered to go back to New Life and love on others, is that there was a time when they were talking about that we have potential to do good. So you can bring your past with you, and if you have pain or hurt or even things that you've done that you're not proud of, you can leave that in the past. It was a great reminder to know that we all fall short of the glory of God, but you still have the potential to move forward and do good in your future. Every one of us were created in the image of God, and we have the potential to love others, and we have the potential to change. So I'm excited to just share that message with those that may be hurting. And so I'm looking forward to just sharing what I heard, and excited to pour into others on our teams, to pour into others at New Life, and pour into others in our community as well. And one of the biggest messages was listen and pay attention to the voice of Jesus, that because he loves you, and it can be just as simple as knowing that. So excited to share that.
I love that even on our team. I love that our culture, at least on our staff, like I love that, and I know our whole team's not here, but I love that I get to invest to make sure you, Tex, that you, Kim, and Kim, as you get to do with your team, and Tex, you do with your team, I do the rest of my team, that hopefully we live this out just among each other. And like I know that this is not like our first time to hanging out together. Maybe it's our first time over a few days together. But I love just spending time with you guys, and I love sharing our lives together. I love talking and investing, and like our heart is that, like, if we can't do that even in this car, or we can't do it in our offices back at home, like, we know that's not going to happen in the lives of our groups and the teams that we're a part of. And so I love that even in this circle, with our other adult ministry team, our other children's team, our other student teams on staff, and then as we move to our volunteers, we know it starts with us. And that we need to be a group of people who love God, who are humble, who are vulnerable with one another, and that this is not a place where we just come and do work. It's hopefully the place where we model what we want everyone to live in the life of our church. And so so we just know as we talk, this is not something we come back and go, okay, now everyone needs to do this. The reality is we know it starts with us. And I appreciate and value the ability to do that with you guys and the rest of our team back at home. And so thank you for what you guys do and the ministry you lead, but more than that, thank you for who you are and the people that you are as you continue to pursue God and pursue community around you as well and stuff. So we are getting close to the airport. I just want to ask, is there a final thought you'd like to share from our week here?
Zach said he'd buy me dinner if I said, please share this so we can get 50 more subscribers. We get 50 new subscribers, I get dinner at the airport. So otherwise, I have to starve. So definitely share with your friends. But all that to be said, it was really great hanging out with you guys today.
Same here. It's just a great weekend. I just appreciate that we have a church that values continuing education like this, and that we can grow together as a team. But that we just come back refreshed with a new focus, and how to grow in relationships, and that just speaks my language this weekend. Just reminding me where my focus needs to be, so that we're working on our relationships together, but then we're working on the relationships that we can build with the people He's put in our lives. So it was always great to come get Southern food. Like, I love Tucson, but I needed me some barbecue and pimento cheese.
Some sweet tea.
I was super grateful to be able to attend this conference with the three of you, and so there was thanks to an anonymous, generous person on the children's team who could not come to Georgia, and we just wish she was here, but she gave me her ticket, and so I just want to say thank you for that as well, and just thank you for the opportunity, and I give all the glory to God that for this time with the three of you.
That's good. As we just wrap this up, I just kind of that final thought is, man, the heart of what we do, the heart of what we're trying to accomplish, whether it's in children's or students or in adult ministry, man, we want people to pursue God. We want people to know God and to live a life that helps them follow God more. But we know that the best way that happens is in the context of community, or the context of relationships. And so our heart is that every kid, every student, every adult would feel welcome, known, and loved through community with relationship with other people. And so if you're not in community, or your kids aren't in community, man, we encourage you, we urge you to say, get involved in community, get involved in helping you grow in relationship with other people and stuff. So that's this month's Leading Well Together podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Leading Well podcast. Let us know your thoughts by leaving your review. Be sure to subscribe and share these episodes through iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, continue to look for ways to unleash your leadership potential to make a difference.